Hey, Terry.
What?
What you doing?
I'm chopping meat.
What do you mean you're chopping meat?
I'm chopping meat.
Well, I can see that. Aren't we supposed to be working today?
I am working.
No, dude. We're supposed to be filming.
Filming what?
Well, the episode with the police station, remember?
I'll be right back. How are you? I'm good. I'm here to see Chief Rollins. Terry Sullivan. You made the comment that it's such an already well-run organization. Chief Devers did an excellent job along with Kerbo and Fadden. And you made the statement, you said, I'm not going to make quick changes, which was very smart. I thought that's a very smart leader. Have you started making some changes? And if you have, what are they?
Yeah, I have, to answer your question. You know, Claire, you've spoken with her several times. And she's very much embedded in our organization. She's embedded in this whole community, in this whole city with all of her workforce. But she found out a couple of weeks after I got here that, I told the officers, I think in general it's probably best, or the department, that it's probably best if I listen and learn for at least 100 days, or 90 days, or whatever my number was, 100 days, to just get me to the point of, okay, I've seen some things, now I'll make some changes, because quick change can be very risky. Any change can be risky. The minute you move something, you're in the restaurant business. If you move any part of your business operation, something will change. You may change a revenue stream, you may change an advertisement scheme, but it's going to change something. So the same applies here. And so I was very slow with wanting to do that. Well, Claire told me that she had gone on a ride out a couple of weeks after I was here and said, hey, are you familiar with May Day? I'm not familiar with May Day. And she said, well, the officers are all very aware that you want to wait at least 90 days or 100 days before you do anything. And that's May 1st. And they all have counters and clocks. And I went and checked, just spot checked a few officers, like, oh yeah, May Day, that's when you're going to make all the changes. So I didn't come down with a whole bastion of changes on May Day. I have made a couple of changes that I'm proud of. I've got Rachel Roberts as one of our officers that was in the neighborhood resource unit, and we moved her into a PIO position here.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's great, and I think she's going to do very well. Now her job is to simply become more of a conduit for the city communications and the police department, and work on our social media outreach, because I think that's a very valuable place for people to connect with Lewisville PD. I've made some other adjustments that are budgetary related. I've listened hard to the officers in this department about what are their needs. Where are we really hurting? And what I hear the officers tell me a lot is they're going to tell you the things, in any budget situation, we need more people, we need more equipment, we need more resources, of course. So it's our job to try to go through and think about what are the best ways to go about achieving those resources. So I've made some adjustments in some vehicle distributions and how we're allotting things, with the emphasis on getting more bodies into the police department. It's my job as a director to present a relevant budget to the city manager so that she and her team can then present a relevant budget to our council. And we have to be very responsible with what we're asking for. And so a lot of those changes are aimed at trying to add staff to the police department without having to add an incredible amount of resources on top of it, to be responsible with that which we have. And I say all that to say, not that anybody before me was irresponsible. This is just a matter of what's, I think, the easiest way to go about doing that. And I will say this, I've learned that even as open and transparent as I want to try to be, and I'm trying to be, I've learned that I'm not going to make everybody happy. And I know that, and I need, quite honestly, the counsel of Chief Wawro and Commander Mays a lot of, I feel like this could be a bad thing. I need your help. I need to lean on you. I really rely on our leadership team to make the right decisions for the people in the right way so they feel it best. And at the end of the day, if some people will like it and some people won't, and we'll get along. But I think what's most important is any change you make, you just have to involve the organization. I'm going to tell you why I'm doing it, even if we don't agree. You can, and I invite anyone in here that wants to sit across the desk and say, I think that's a horrible idea, and that's completely fine. We may still do it my way, but at the end of the day, I want your input. So.
Yeah. Of course, they may have to go look for another job in Arlington. Outside of that,
I would never hold them accountable for that. They're welcome to come in here and talk to me about it.
Claire is a good friend and a good city manager. One of the great things about Claire and her organization is they don't make decisions without information. They don't sit behind closed doors and say, well, I think we'll do this, I think we'll do that. You know, Claire is out in the city. She's out in the city. She goes on ride-along. She really entrusts herself into the community as part of the fabric of Lewisville. How have you enjoyed working with her?
It's a breath of fresh air, and I would never denigrate where I came from. Arlington is what made me who I am today as a police officer. And I think that our communication style there was certainly different than it is here, and this is better. I have never been in a place where my boss's boss can roam freely around these halls and have ongoing dialogue with any of the members of the department about anything that they see fit to talk with her about, because she will not come back and hold me accountable for that hallway conversation. And I think that's one of the lessons that I'm trying to learn from her as I go about doing my thing. Is I don't want silos of communication. I want us to talk constantly about what's happening. It helps us better understand why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm literally, as much as it may, and there are some chiefs that would make very nervous to have their city manager roaming around the department, listening into what the members of the organization are saying. I prefer that she be in here to hear what's going on. I want her to hear the good and the bad.
Sure.
She can't just take it from me. So I know she's doing that, and I think that's what makes her a better leader for me.
She's a great leader, great city manager. Chief, with over 250 officers and staff and almost 100 volunteers that work with the city and with the city department, what's your most challenging?
For me, the thing that I tend to lose the most sleep over is having a workforce that enjoys where they work. The business of policing is going to change. You know, Bill's been at it for 20 plus years, I've been at it for 20 plus years, and even since he started when I started, the business of policing has changed. That's always going to be a constant. So for me, I would hope members of the police department would want a leader that's aware of that change or that adjustment to policing itself and is sensitive to their needs as we go about doing it. So I lose a lot of sleep over how the department is thinking and what they're experiencing and how are they feeling. And I want to draw a good line on this of, I realize we're not going to make everybody happy with what we do, but I just want to make sure that everybody has had a chance to participate in what's going on. Even if it means they're not making the decision, they're giving input, or they're sitting on a committee, or they're advising me on what they think, or they're talking through their chain of command, and we're identifying areas we can be more efficient with that. That's all I really want. And I lose a lot of, I'm putting them on the spot, but I tend to struggle probably more if I had how could I do it better? I think that's probably the advice I get back is, you can make that decision, go ahead, I think you're in the right spot. I do. I tend to struggle with how that's going to impact people a lot more.
Bill was one of the top 3 candidates for your job. So Bill, let me ask you, when all the dust cleared and you and Chief Rollins was hired for this position, were you nervous about Brook coming in, or did you have that all settled before he got here?
Well, I think everybody's a little nervous. You don't know what's coming. I'm sure he was nervous. We had met a little bit through the process, not had a lot of time together, but a little bit of time together, and that was helpful. So I reached out shortly after he was selected and just said, hey, I'm here to help you. And so we had some conversations before the very first day. Several times through text, through email, and even through a phone call or two. We met and talked, and every meeting and every conversation helped relieve some of those nerves because you get to know each other a little bit more, and so it quickly resolved.
You know, Bill's got one of those, what would you call it, contagious personalities. He really does. Did he make you feel welcome your first day?
There is no way to underscore how welcome I felt because of what Chief Wawro did and what the staff here did. And in particular, I mean, met me here on day 1 at 6 a.m. because I wanted to be at every briefing as fast as possible, as much as possible, to meet the whole organization. And that was a daunting task, and it didn't achieve it as fast as I wanted because I didn't estimate the way that, you know, the organization is laid out. But Bill was here on day 1 from minute 1 and literally escorted me all throughout the department comically as we were getting started for our 6 a.m. briefing. Hey, where's the restroom at? He directs me out to, and I got out to the hot lobby and I got lost and I had to get back in, so I had to find my way back in, you know, to the building that I'm now in charge of for the last 7 minutes, you know, and so. He's been great, and I think that he makes a good point about I think both of us, and we've had long talks about the process. We've had long talks about why we're each here and what it is we both have goals about. I think that's probably more important, at least to me, than how the process turned out is, what do you need from me and what do I need from you and how can we work together? And I have gotten nothing but that from him, and I hope he doesn't leave anytime soon.
Well, he won't, because Janine has told him that he'll be here until Jesus comes, and that's
yeah, that may be accurate, sir. And I think that that's the other thing is, and I want to highlight that for her. She reached out to my wife and had some conversations with her too. You know, my wife is hands down probably the most important thing to me that is, you know, outside of my faith. And I think that she dealt with some pretty good stressors about giving up her job and moving her family up here, because we're all in. We live in Lewisville. Our kids will go to school here. My wife's going to work here. And that was a big change for her too. Well, Janine was a good landing pad for that too. And she really stepped up and communicated. And I think they still text infrequently and are still in touch, but we've shared a dinner together. We've tried to keep that connectivity well, and I think that's helped her land too. So I owe that to his family there too.
Well, Janine, talking about Janine is, you know, she's one of those people that she doesn't care what level of life any human being is on. She's going to reach out and pick them up. She is a great person.
I would agree with that.
And so is your wife. You know, I've had an opportunity, as you've been around the restaurant, I've had an opportunity to meet your son and your wife, and what a sweet family you have. And we're so fortunate to have her as part of this community. And of course, she's going to become the swim coach at the high school this next year.
Yes, sir.
And I know she's excited about that. So here you are. You're still in Midlothian, living there, or at the time that you took this job. How nervous were you the night before? What kind of conversation did you have with your wife the night before? Did you have any, oh man, I hope I made the right decision here?
Oh yeah. I had that moment. I got to tell you, Terry, I have that fleeting thought every now and again too. It still exists. I had that thought. I had that thought all the way into work. And I tell you what dethroned it for me immediately was meeting up with Bill at minute one when I walked through the door and had a chance to see what it was all going to be. But there's a lot of nerves. You know, there's a lot of change on my part too, and I don't ever want to get this in front of my cops or my employees, because it's not about me. You know, I left my old job, I moved my house, I moved here and started a new job in a new city with a new role that I'd never been. And that was a lot to take on. It was very daunting. But it's not about me, it's just those are some of the struggles I went through. I assure you it was long before that night before. Quite honestly, the night before it was like, let's do this. Let's get going, because I'm kind of tired of, you know, dancing around the conclusion of this. I want this to come to a get started moment.
It was a long process.
Yeah, it really was.
And a daunting process.
It was. I had never been, we've talked about this before, I had never been through something so involved. Claire and her team did a very good job at identifying who the candidates were. And when I left that panel, and I think we talked briefly that last day, it was whoever they pick has been grit tested. Like, I know that Chief Wawro and even Chief Martinez, the other candidate, these were people that have been grit tested. So if you want to know if you have a chief that can stand up to this type of barrage of interviewing, they've got 3 good candidates here, and these were all very effective leaders that all had a good shot at that spot. We certainly had been through the gauntlet, that's for sure.
Well, they're attorneys.
Yeah.
Come to find out, right?
They are, yes sir, yeah.
Chief, there's a lot of folks in Lewisville that are concerned about the gang violence, the drugs, and the crime on 121 Business Road. What's your plan to bring peace to those concerns?
Everybody that lives in a town has every right to be concerned about crime that impacts them. And it wouldn't matter, I could sit in here and show you stat after stat after stat of what the crime actually says versus what people think it is, because the second part of that's the most important part. What people think is a little different than what may actually transpire. If somebody's concerned there's a crime area in their neighborhood, the stats are helpful, but they feel that way because of where they live and where they work and what they see. So to answer your question, well, we think deliberately about the way we operate. One of the things that we are pushing for towards the latter part of this summer is something I'm calling geographic accountability. And this will stand up in our patrol segments here in the next couple of weeks and/or months. But this is designed to empower members of the police department to be more involved in problem solving within their areas now. You know, now my officers come on duty and they go off duty and there's a whole nother fleet of officers that come behind them and just pick up where they left off. But hey, what happened on the last shift to this shift, and what happened with that burglary spree we had at this one business where several cars were broken into? I want my officers talking. I guarantee you, if you want to solve crime in this community, we need two things. We need people to talk, and we need the help of the community. So the talking starts with us here. The smartest people about solving crime in this department, it's not us. It's not us. It is the members of the organization who are out there every day doing it. They could tell me a thing or two about the way you solve some of these problems. And I think that if we empower them with some of that geographic accountability, it's not an accountability of, okay, I'm going to stand behind you now so I can talk to you about the crime up in your area. It's, no, you're accountable for it. What do you have to tell us about it? What do you think we need to do? And letting them have some say-so in that and creating that buy-in. And admittedly, this is going to be like bending granite. But I think people will see the value in it, I hope. And so this is one of those changes that I hope is embraced. But I admit there's going to be some tripping and some, I'm not sure about that. This doesn't feel right. I'm wearing this new sweater, it's too tight. That part we have to manage. I have to manage the communication piece, and then I've got to work with command staff to get this set up and in the right direction. The whole point is to empower officers to make more decisions, which goes back to your question. How do you get people to feel more comfortable in their town? Well, you empower the employees to make decisions about crime solving, and then you talk about those issues openly and deliberately with the community to show them. Another thing that I'm happy to talk about that is coming later this summer is we're going to put up some public-facing dashboards for our community to be able to log into and specifically drill down into their neighborhood and look at what crime numbers actually exist. Because the truth of the matter, Terry, is sometimes when people think there's a crime problem, we look and we're like, nothing's going on right there. But the person feels the way they do because they heard it from someone else or they were talking about it on social media, so it must be true. This will put the information into your hands. So you as a business owner in that area would be able to say, I've looked, and this is essentially what I've seen around me. This is why it's more about the conversation and talking our story than it is about just relying on the stats to do that for us. And that ties back to why Officer Roberts is a good addition to the public face of making communications.
Well, I think that's excellent because forever it seems like there's always been a gap between the public and the police department, and if we can get the two together, if we can bridge that gap, then I think we'll have a safer city.
I know you're right. I mean, we're powerless without the community's help, and I know the department feels that way. I just want to give them the tools to do that instead of saying, well, in order to make a decision now, you've got to go through your sergeant, through your captain, over to the assistant chief. Now, what do you want to do? You see a problem with I don't know, somebody that's unhoused and they need access to resources. You don't have to funnel that somewhere. You wear the patch, go over there and solve the problem and help the business owner and that person out. I promise you that'll solve the problem. And then tell your beat partner what happened with that. So when they come in on the next shift, they're already aware that you've worked that issue. So creating those systems of communication and creating that open dialogue and empowering our officers to make decisions, those are all things we're going to have to get used to, and I think we will do well with it.
So instead of wearing a patch, wearing a badge, do your job, go home.
Right.
You're creating ownership. We want you to have ownership in who we are and what we are in this community.
Correct. If there's been a burglary in your area, I want you to be upset about it as the officer. I want you to be like, dadgummit, we've been trying to solve that problem for weeks and they hit us overnight again. We got to readjust. That's what I want. The officers don't want me to stand and dictate to them what crime says and how we need to respond, because they have more of the experience than I do, and they probably don't want Bill to do it either. They probably want us to give them the tools and the strategy and let them make decisions about what needs to happen best. And we're all going to have to learn. So we've got some ideas. In fact, Bill shared one with me before this meeting started about some great ideas he has for some segments of our department in a way to kind of encapsulate all this, and I can't wait to get into it because he's off on a great start.
Chief, you have an open door policy. Now, this is kind of unusual because most police chiefs, even though they want to be accessible to their staff, to their officers, just to be able to walk in, and if you're not busy, just to be able to walk in and sit down and have a conversation about concerns. Is that working for you?
I think I think so. And what I've also enjoyed is that my command staff has a very similar policy, that it wasn't too hard of a learning experience for anybody. I don't lock this door at night. There's nothing in here that's, that I worry about somebody having access to. An open door policy to me is important, not just for me, but to the rest of the organization. I also want the leaders in this department to have an open door policy with their people. What I've also learned is that just because this door is open does not mean people are going to walk in here. Some people are, I don't know, standoffish about coming into the chief's office just because of the look that it may have. So that means you have to meet people where they are. And I take that lesson from Claire about the way she goes out and meets people where they are. So you deliberately find me in CID, you'll find me in the property room, you'll find me in records, you'll find me out in the field with the employees. We had the weather day, I was out with them answering calls. It's not about the recognition, it's just the open door policy is more of a metaphor, and this is just one angle of it, is being able to walk in here at any point.
Well, Terry, I'm going to jump in just to kind of accentuate the point. I think every chief has an open door policy, at least they claim to, and everybody understands the importance of it. But I will say with Chief Rollins, he's the more extreme than I've ever worked with. It's now turned to commonplace that I'll get a text saying, I'm out in patrol right now. I'll catch you later. Or, hey, I'm a meeting with so-and-so. We can reschedule our meeting. He's open to that. There's not a time I come to his door, and I know how busy he is. My wall's right here. And I'll go, you got a second? He goes, I always have a second for you. And we're busy. We're trying to find time. So he is out there. He's out there with the people. He really makes a point of it to really build those relationships. And when we talk about empowering people, that's where it is. It's the relationship building, being down, working with them, understanding them, and he does an excellent job with that.
You're lucky I don't work under this roof, because you know what I'd do? I'd just stick my head into both of your offices. I wouldn't have anything to say. I'd just go, what you doing?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. We'd task you with something. We're really good.
I wouldn't want to work.
We'll put people to work around here.
I'd say, let's go to lunch. Well, it's not lunchtime. It is for me. Let's go to lunch.
Right, we're good with that. We do. I have to. Bill does a good job at managing his lunch. I like lunch, and so I drag him to lunch every now and again. And I think those are good. I think those are good things too.
Chief, you're and Bill, thank you. Chief, your father-in-law is an police chief of a community in the DFW area. So when you got the call, when you got the nod to come over here, what's the best advice that he gave you?
He gave me really good advice. He told me a couple of things. My father, if I could be half the leader my father-in-law was, I'm set. But he told me a couple of things about the importance of listening to people, and he told me to avoid snap judgments without thought. And seeking first to understand, and then arriving at a decision. And I've really leaned on that. He was very excited. He was one of my biggest cheerleaders for what I was doing, which is also very humbling to get from him. And so those were some of the lead-off comments I got from him was make sure you understand what you're doing before you do it as much as you can, and avoid snap decisions, because you'll regret those more than everything else you have time to think through. On the other hand, one of the things that I know that I'm good at is I'm not paralyzed by making a decision. I'll make a decision, and sometimes I make decisions too fast, right? Well, let's just do this. I think I've been described as a fixer. I like to, let's fix that. That's a problem, let's fix it. Not everything needs to be fixed, even if it doesn't look right to me. And that's been a real important discussion with the employees of this department, is something that doesn't look right to me does not necessarily need to be fixed. It may work just fine here, and there's no need to fix it. And so leading through that communication of an open door policy of, look, this is really all this means. You don't have anything to fear. I know I'm diving off your question here, but that's something that I kind of use with what my father-in-law talked about making sure you understand before you make these important decisions. Because at the end of the day, you are dealing with people's work life. And if my goal is I just want people happy when they come to work, not happy with me, just happy when they come to work. I don't want people dreading coming to the office. And I fully understand it's not about whether they like me or not. Sure, that'd be great, and I hope for that. But that's not what the point is. The point is they like their workplace.
I think they like you as well. Bill, what is the difference? Talk to the community. What is, you're the deputy police chief. Describe that, and how are you different than the police chief?
Well, ours is set up with, we kind of break it into 3 different bureaus. And so I'm over one of the bureaus, and I basically deal with most of the bureau that's not in patrol. Patrol is the largest number that we have. It's the backbone of what we do. So one chief is over the patrol bureau. I'm over all the sworn side that aren't in patrol with some civilian, and then Commander Mays is over almost the rest of the civilian crew. So that's how it breaks down, and our job is to support him and his vision. So we see the problems, we help identify those problems, and Chief talked about empowering our people. Well, that's how we start finding where those problems are. If we're empowering the people where the information is, and they're seeing it, and they're saying, hey, you're in the way here, this is a problem there, that's our job, is to kind of help build those systems to not be in their way. And I 100% believe his philosophy, because I try to live it. I try to empower my people to make those decisions. So I don't have to make them all, don't want to make them all. I also like making decisions, but in reality, the better decisions are where the information is, and often that's where the rubber meets the road. And so those are all the different steps. So what does that mean? It means if I can take anything off his plate, I try to. And if we're discussing a policy that needs to change, then hopefully I'm the one rewriting the policy and going, hey, what do you think of this? And that's a lot of what we do. And so when we look at an area that needs to be adjusted, or I think needs to be adjusted, or he thinks needs to be adjusted, they come both directions. And then I try to help create those, and we as a command staff work through them. And when it comes to the fixing part, well, then maybe that's where my job can start filling in is, okay, now I've got it in writing, now I can put it in, now I can push it out and make sure that information is out there.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I had to run out of here to go. I forgot what I was doing, but that's normal for me. But now I'm back, so I got to get to work. So y'all leave me alone. But it was a great interview with Chief Rollins. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.